the video podcast that keeps you in the mix of everything real estate. As always, we have our power panel. First, we have Adam Sperber. He's the VP of Residential Real Estate at the Alexander Anderson, I was going to say the Center for Real Estate.
Changing the name on us.
At Alexander Anderson Real Estate Group. Next, we have Nima Ameri. He is managing partner of Ameri Law Firm and a rock star deal maker. And last but never least, we have Omar Sharif, who is the VP of Alexander Anderson Capital Group.
I like this buzzer.
I think Mommy needs to take the buzzer.
We need to get our own on this.
We've just been canceled. This side of the table is cancel culture.
So today we are talking about finding residential off-market properties. We are in this tough market. It's hard for buyers to find homes. And you guys know I'm looking for a home. You got to find me one, Adam.
We will.
And how are you going to do it? You can look off-market. So first, someone tell our audience, what is an off-market property?
I just had a genius idea. I should buy a domain name called offmarkethomes or something.com.
I can almost I should look it up.
That's sick, right?
That's a good idea.
Just bring people into that thinking it's like an off-market scenario, just like all those auction sites, which are really basically just a free market website, but everybody thinks they're discounts.
But now the question is, once you put it on a website like that, does that become on market?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Most people won't realize anyway.
It's
They'll
taken.
think that they have
I'm glad you're
access
thinking
to
the
an
same way I
exclusive
am.
deal.
It's taken. It's definitely
landing
taken.
page, or it's a real thing?
It's
It's learn more about off-market property. They want you to sign up on their website.
Nonsense. Let's sue them for cyber squatting.
What is an off-market property, guys? Tell them.
So the traditional process that people go through when they want to sell their house is they hire a real estate agent, they put it on the MLS, and then in turn it goes on the market. So an off-market property is something where somebody's looking to sell, or they might have what I call a make me move. I think that's not what I call it. I think that's what Zillow calls it, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. But a make me move number. So it means if I could sell my house for $500K, I'll sell it tomorrow. So it's bringing the buyers to the right people, I guess, essentially. So it's something that's not on the traditional market like Zillow or Trulia or Realtor.com.
So it's not on the MLS.
It's not on the MLS.
Okay.
So I only like to buy off market, but I got a question for you two, right? As a person who only likes to buy off market, the one thing I never understood is if you have an off market property, right, and there's an agent involved, it's not a friend or family, if it's an off market property, why wouldn't you encourage them, or why wouldn't they want to take the property to market, as they'll probably get more money for it? No?
Correct. So yes. So there's things that people have. There's pocket listings. So as an agent, you can have what's called a pocket listing as well.
Pocket listing?
So pocket listing, or like a exclusive listing for your brokerage or something like that, is essentially you say you want to sell your house, but you don't want me to put it on Zillow. You don't want people to know that you're looking to sell.
Okay.
So we just kind of keep it, and we use our network of buyers. And that's, in my opinion, if I was selling my house, I would never do that, because exactly like you mentioned, you're lowering your pool of buyers, and in turn, your the amount of money that you can get for your house. Mm-hmm. So, but there's a lot of people that don't want people to know that they're selling their house.
Why? You're running from the mob? What?
I don't know.
Is that what we call the IRS now?
Yeah.
Well, not just that, but also they don't want to deal with the people coming in,
That's
showing,
it.
Okay.
scheduling time, working with realtors, paying commissions.
There's a whole. They think that they can save money by keeping it.
I don't want to fix up my house. I don't want to show it.
But there's
right?
also the side of it. They say, well, if I can save 4% or 5% or whatever the number is on selling my house and do it myself. But on the other side of things, if you look at it, and this is a pitch for, I guess, as a real estate agent that you make, if you look at strictly numbers, I'm an analytical guy. If you look at numbers, your house is going to sell for more if you use a real estate agent than if you sell it by yourself.
In today's market, by what percentage?
I would have to check. I don't know what it is in today's market, but if you look at like the National Association of Realtors, NAR, they publish numbers that it's substantially more than that 5% or whatever number of commission that you would pay to list it with a realtor. But there's not only the money side of it, there's also the not having to deal with the hassle of showing it, not having to deal with the hassle of all the back and forth, and you have somebody doing all the work for you. So I've used that when I'm getting a listing. I say, okay, you want to sell your house for $600. That's what you think you can sell it for. Let's say 5% brings it up 30 grand. If I can sell your house for 630 grand, so 30 grand more than you could sell it for, and I do all the work, why would you not list it with me?
True. So let's differentiate, because I think there's going to be a difference between an off-market listing and a listing without an agent. because there still are people
Correct.
who will want to avoid it, try to sell it themselves, and will try to take it to market themselves. They'll post it on Zillow. They'll think they can do it themselves. And I'll just say this, as an investor, I don't even bother with those properties.
Why?
Right.
Because in my experience, now guys, and nothing here is gospel, right? We just do things off experience. Someone who refuses to have an agent, it's for two reasons, right? Either they're not able to get an agent because what they want is too much, and agents tell them that this listing price doesn't make sense, so they don't trust agents, or they're too cheap to deal with an agent, don't want to lose a couple percent, and that's not the type of person you can negotiate with because they think that their product has more value than it does.
And they think they know more than the experts.
Correct. And if you're trying to go in and get a deal, which is what we're trying to do, I'm not trying to go in and overpay. I'm trying to always underpay. I don't even want to pay market, right? Because to me, market's overpaying. I see those people and I run away. Right. So differentiating it, there's the people who just don't want agents, but they still see on Zillow. And then there's the off market, which I think we're talking about, which is properties that, like you said, are pocket listings, don't touch any type of internet. They're just a seller who wants to sell their house and, meet someone. And we'll go more into it, but I just want to separate the two.
Sure.
And also, it's not only those, but as we're going to talk about going forward, it's also people that don't even know that they want to sell their house yet, correct? So,
just another thing for Adam, actually, I think, and I keep sending these questions to Adam because he is a residential real estate, does commercial as well, but he experiences this stuff on a daily.
So does Omar. Omar gets jiggy with it.
Omar's out here trying to make his own money, all right?
Omar knows.
So, all right, so this is a question for both of you guys then, right?
Let's go.
All right. You have, in your experience, right? Because I know what I see, and this is my opinion. I want you guys to correct me if it's wrong. In your experiences, right, when you see on Zillow for sale by owner, usually, do you see days listed or days on Zillow to be substantially more than properties that otherwise aren't?
Yes and no. Yeah, you do. I mean, you said it best before. A lot of people think that their house is, gold and it's the best of the best and they don't want to listen to reason, right? But you can just say, well, here's comps that justify what it's worth, market value. So a lot of people think that their home is worth, multiple times, maybe 10, 15, 20% more than market value, and they try to justify that, and that's why it sits there. But a lot of times people that are doing for sale by owners aren't really serious. So when you hire a real estate agent, you're serious, you're going to sell. When you put it for sale by owner, a lot of these people are just like, if I can get the number that works for me, I'll take it.
Omar, what do you think about that?
So for sale by owners, I'm on the same page as you. I avoid them entirely. But I do see them sit on the market longer, the ones that I do come across. And I don't know if I would even consider that off market because the for sale by owner is its own market. And people who don't want to go to an agent.
Also, it goes online. They still put it online.
Yeah.
And once it goes online, then the price just...
Yeah, so it does get the exposure, and there's a website forsalebuyowner.com.
Right.
And Facebook.com.
Yeah.
And
also,
there currently is. We'll see.
On Zillow, on Julia, on all of those, you still can pick if you want to see it for sale by owner.
Correct, yeah.
Another listing.
It tells you if it's listed by an agent or for sale by owner.
But we hear
all those companies try to actually cut real estate agents out and make themselves their own brokerages, essentially, by saying, hey, pay us, you can list with us. And
all they do is put it on the MLS.
Yeah, they just, right.
They don't do anything. They charge $400, $500, whatever the number is, and all they do is put it on the MLS, which makes it go to Zillow. But they don't do any of the negotiating. They don't do any of the marketing. They just put up the pictures that you take.
Let's talk about the most important thing, a lockbox, right? How annoying is it if you have to be there every single time you have someone coming to see your house? So you're basically saying for 4%, 5%, your time has no value. Because if you're there for 100 showings...
You like time with value.
Time has value, guys.
We do know
Most of you people watching this do not give your time value, and that's why you're looking for opportunities, right? Once you realize that your time has value, you're going to see your productivity skyrocket. So if you show up 2 hours a time, 50 times, right? Because you have to be there for before. Sometimes they're late. They walk around. They take their time. They chat on your front lawn. So 50 showings, 2 hours a time. You just wasted 100 hours of your life. At 100 hours of your life, if you work a basic job making $25 an hour, which most people who are homeowners make a little bit more than that, right? So if you're making $25 an hour at 100,
we're starting with the math again.
You just lost $3,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just for showings and no guarantee of sale. So when you're worried about not paying your agent, which comes out of the commission at the end, you just lost $3,000, $2,500 of your own time. That's not counting your job not saying why the hell you're not there all the time.
Well, you talked about why you don't like
Yes.
off market for sellers. What is the benefit for a seller?
For a seller, I mean, the main benefit is you don't have as many people coming through. You're going to have more serious people coming through.
So people who come through are actually going to want your property.
Yeah, you're not going to have as many like just people just popping in and out and things like that. It's a different market that you're going after, I guess, but it's also, you know, like timing. Like I'll give you examples. You know, when you take a listing, it has an expiration date, or you can withdraw it from the market. So let's say you take a listing, or I take a listing, I list your house, I have a 6-month listing. 6 months in a day, that comes off of the MLS. Now it's technically off market.
Okay. But if you don't put it on the market to begin with, then people can't see how long it's been on market.
Correct, because it's not on the market.
That's a benefit. Got it.
Yeah, and then you're gonna get look. If I was selling my house, if I was on the selling side, I would always list it 100%. I would never go off market if I had any motivation to sell. You want as much exposure as you can get. You want it plastered everywhere on the side of billboards if you can get it. You want it literally everywhere that you can put it, because you're gonna get as much exposure and in turn get as much money as you can, especially in this market.
So, Omar, what are the benefits to the buyer? Why does a buyer want to find an off-market listing?
You want me to chime in?
Depends. No, hold on. Because if it's a retail buyer who wants to move in,
Right.
if they find something off market, chances are it's not being marketed properly and doesn't have the same exposure that a listing would have. So you most likely will be dealing with less people as far as competition goes.
No competition.
No
No
competition.
competition.
Depends.
None. Who are you bidding against?
Whoever else sees that it's a for sale by owner.
Right?
So I mean, yeah. So it's a lot less, and then you'll see properties that the majority of people are not seeing. So
Which
it's
is great.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for
It can be.
for me, and Omar, correct me if I'm wrong, because let's put on our investor hats now, right? So with our investor hats on a for sale by owner, looks at it a little bit differently, right? So one, no competition.
Right.
I've already talked about this on prior shows where if they come back to me and it gets into a bidding war, I walk, right? I just don't like the concept of it, and I'm not gonna chase something, because now you're bidding with emotion, you're not bidding with numbers. But for usually an off-market property, the way I view as an investor, an off-market property is something that is through a personal connection, that someone just passed away. The kids want to get rid of it. The guy lives in another state and just wants to unload it. And through a friend of a friend, you figure out it's for sale, or through a contact, or even there's some people who look for off markets and then get locked into contract and they assign it. We'll talk about that later. There's now a world just dealing with assignments on that.
Really?
Yeah. You know, I look for those opportunities, but I look for them knowing two things. One, it's not all, you know, fields and berries where you're going to look at it and say, oh, look, I got this cheap. You're recognizing that there's going to be no concessions, very limited inspection.
Right.
You're not going to go tell them, hey, let me wait and get a mortgage, right? Most times if you see that deal and you get that number, you got to tell them, you got to be quick. You got to say, listen, I love your property. We can close this in 2-3 weeks, cash closing, and we're done. So you got to be ready to move. And I think this goes to Adam's point of saying you're dealing with a different type of buyer as well, because these guys are more serious.
So do you have to be an all-cash buyer? I mean, if
You don't have to be anything,
Yeah.
right?
Everything's negotiable in real estate, right? But it doesn't give you, like, you know, the idea, what he was saying is the idea with people with off market, sometimes they just want a quick close, they want to offload the property and be done with it. So if it's going to take you 6 or 8 weeks to get a mortgage, that kind of defeats the purpose.
And you don't want to give that buyer time, the seller time, right? Because then he's going to go talk to somebody else. And as he talks to someone else, he's going to be like, dude, your property's worth a lot more than that, right? Time is not your friend. When you got a good deal,
you want to ambush them.
you got to be ready to play with the big boys. You got to put your
Pounce.
money where your mouth is, get into a contract, and be ready to close.
Yeah, but also there's off market and then there's for sale by owners. For sale by owner isn't considered quote unquote off market. What Nima's
Right.
referring to is not someone who has the intentions of selling by advertising. It's
Real
someone-
off market.
Yeah, real off market is not for sale by owner. It's someone who needs to sell and you approach them at the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Do you look for sale by owners when you do
Not at
flips?
all. Not at
Do you look at off market?
That's all I look at.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you look for that?
By marketing.
What do you
So-
mean?
Okay,
So
explain. Tell our audience.
so this is
So everybody knows I was
going off-
cross-examining.
So this is getting away from the retail side of it and getting into the investment side of finding deals. So most off-market deals are not going to be, none of them will be advertised. And the idea is to find homes that people need to sell because they're facing some sort of distressed situation.
So how do you do that?
You've picked your niche. Do you want to deal with people who are losing their home to foreclosure? If you want to focus on foreclosures, you could target the sheriff's sale. You could find people who are in pre-foreclosure, send them mailers, get in front of them, and see if you could work out a deal before they decide to list the house or take any action.
Okay, and what are other ways?
Wait, how do you find pre-foreclosures? How do you find that?
So a pre-foreclosure is when someone misses their payments by at least 3 months. And when that happens, the bank sends what's known as a list pendants.
Adam and I just thought 2008.
Yeah. Well, that was a whole market back then.
Yeah.
But I mean, how do you find it? Where do you go?
Well,
Is there a database?
Zillow does show it, but
do,
I
but-
don't.
Theirs is only if you miss like one payment.
Yes,
though.
if you're late on
So
your
if you're
payments.
late on one payment, you can completely
Is it though? I don't know.
catch up.
I don't know if they could do that by one payment. It has to be 3
Oh, I
payments.
did my research last night for this one, and it's one
really?
payment.
So
Zillow, that's interesting.
They probably
looked it
go
up.
through credits and things like that, or public
Yeah,
notices.
I don't know where they get their
Yeah, because
information.
I think legally, from what I understand, in order to file a list pendants, they have to be 3 months behind. And list pendants is the source to know when someone's behind payments, no?
Correct. So,
So that's news.
Once you file a list pendants, right,
Mm-hmm.
you can't just file it. There has to be a docket number associated with it.
Which makes it
so
public.
once it goes into the court system, it's public record, and typically that's when they used to begin a foreclosure process or proceeding, and then it just became public record, right? So it was called, there was pre-foreclosure and post-foreclosure. I don't know if banks have to produce lists of people that are defaulted.
No, so banks don't have to, but when they file a list pendants, you can purchase a list of list pendants.
Okay.
And that's the list that you can buy.
But for all you guys out there who are like, wow, this is so great. I mean, and I don't mean to burst everyone's bubble. Everybody knows about this who's actually in real estate right now, an
Yeah.
investor.
no
And
secret.
that's not even like this is not even a great angle anymore because you're like 3 years late to the game, right? People who
Yeah.
figured that out a couple of years ago
Got it.
have milked it to such a T that that's not the Wild West anymore. That's not a front.
It's not.
Sure.
It's a lot of
Right.
work, and right now is not even the right time to deal with pre-foreclosures. But just because you have a list, it doesn't mean anything. I've seen lists being marketed throughout the nation. When I first got started in this, you'd see a list, purchase this list for $500, you get all the pre-foreclosures across the nation. It sounds like it's great that you might find deals, but that doesn't lead to anything.
But they've
so.
given it to everyone in the
Yeah,
world.
but how
They've
many
given it to
people?
everyone
Yeah.
who has $500.
And on top of that, it's public information if you really dig for it. So
Got it.
there's no
And
need to dig for it.
honestly, it's become a gimmick. Like
It
I
is.
see on Instagram and I see all these
It is.
public speakers talking about get rich fast. I'll show you how to find deals. And they tell you this stuff and you pay for their classes, right? And in reality, they're just peddling to you public information that they've just found a way to put together.
Yeah.
Except for our class. Omar does Find, Fun,
That's a
Flip
great
and
plug.
the Burr class. And this is all information that he gives you that you can't find publicly. Well, you could, but it would take you way too long. And then you get Omar.
I package it in a way where it's presented in a 1 weekend class. And on top of that, I specifically mentioned that pre-foreclosures, I go through it. I'll show you advertisements where they're sold, and then I'll show you how to get it for free because it's public information.
Well, guys, and on top of that too, right? Look at who you're learning from, right? So a guy like Omar does a class only on weekends. It's not his profession to be a public speaker to push a system, right? Whereas when you're taking these classes from these guys, be like, well, how do you have time to actually do any real estate if you're traveling the country, touring, doing podcasts and shows every day, selling your system, right? You really can't. You're just selling a system that already exists. You're not in the game. If you do
Right,
take a
and
class,
it's out of a box. It's not.
Yeah.
yeah, it's nothing
focused.
special.
It's not focused.
If you are gonna take a class, and you should, right? That's why you're listening to us now. You're trying to learn. You got to look at who you're learning from. And a guy like Omar, he lives it. That's what he does the rest of the week, and he gives his time for free
He's the real G.
to just educate you guys.
I'm on the right team over here, as you can tell.
Listen,
We need to hit the buzzer
Adam,
right now.
Adam,
You
Yes.
played yourself.
let's talk directly to real estate agents.
Sure.
So you have a buyer. You can't find anything for your buyer because there's no inventory out there. What can they do to help that buyer find off market, and how do they guide them? What do they, if they want a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house in Ridgewood,
Sure.
what do you do?
We trying to get some free advice here right now because that was very specific.
Yeah, right?
She's like dog friendly, hardwood floors.
At least 3 bedrooms.
Yeah.
What are you gonna
Minimum
do?
a 1990s forward kitchen.
Yeah. quartz countertops. So I'll give you an example of one story where I did this with. I had a buyer, and she was right in the sweet spot, looking to spend $400,000 to $500,000 in a few specific towns. And every time we were getting into a bidding war, it was just we were having a lot of trouble. So not trying to give out all the secrets here, but what I would do is instead of going after properties that were on the market, I went after properties that had expired or were withdrawn from the market.
Okay.
No competition, or almost no competition. And what I did was I worked up a list, and they were already on the MLS at one point, so there were pictures already taken.
Which is so important.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants a picture.
So what I did was I worked up a list, and I do this all the time for my buyers. What I did was I presented a list and said, here's 10 properties. Here's the pictures, everything. They were all withdrawn or expired for one reason or another. If any of these look like something you're looking for, I'll go and talk to them. And she said, these ones look good. So what I did was I went and I knocked on doors. And I physically went and knocked on their doors. And I went to this one woman's house.
I'm sorry, if you knocked on my door, I'd be like, who is this crazy guy knocking
That's
on
what
my
they
door?
thought. She was very standoffish at the beginning of the knocking. I remember this. I came and I stood back, because it's during COVID, and I stood back and I said, look, I'm not trying to list your house. I have a buyer. You were trying to sell. Are you still trying to sell your house? And she said, very hesitantly, yes. And I said, by the end of that conversation, she let me in the house and she let me tour the house.
And then he stole everything. Now.
And now it's my house.
That's like 9 horror movies that start this, right?
Yeah, right.
Did you end up making?
I made the sale, and I doubled. So it worked out great for everybody. She sold her house without having to deal with putting it on the market and 100 people coming in and out. My buyer got a house that she wasn't, she was struggling to get a house because there was so much competition. I got paid even more commission because I was able to negotiate in a higher amount. Okay. Everybody won. And it worked out great. So that's what I've been doing a lot of, is going after these off markets, going after these expireds or withdrawn listings.
Okay, well,
they were on the market at one point. They want to sell.
Guys, that's why it's so important to, like, if you do use an agent, we talked about this before, don't hop around between different agents and vet who your agent is, not someone who you can just laugh with. Because I deal with a lot of agents, and there's very few that would go to those lengths and extremes to find a property for one of their buyers. Because remember, while Adam's doing that, he's not servicing other people. That's time. That's just time that he's putting in, right? You're not just getting some emails off of the MLS based off of criteria you put in that everybody else is getting to.
Which are always automated anyway.
Yeah.
So that's what you should look for in somebody. And you want somebody that's going to go the extra mile and that's going to not be afraid to literally knock on somebody's door. And as an agent, it's like I said, it's a great way for you to make more money. Because not only do you make the sale, but instead of getting 2%, maybe you can get 4 or 5%. Because you can negotiate it in. You just have to be very clear when you market to them or when you speak to them that you're not looking to list their house. You have one buyer that you want to pitch this house to. But now let's say it does fall through. Obviously, that's your initial intention. Now it does fall through for your buyer. They don't buy it for whatever reason. They don't love it, whatever the situation is. Now you already have a relationship with the seller. Try to leverage that relationship and turn it into a listing, even though that wasn't your original intention. Now you've built up a relationship. You have their information. You've met with them numerous times. Why not say, look, I guess it didn't work out for buyer X or buyer A or whoever this was, but I really feel like we could sell your house very quickly if you let me market it. And now you're in front of them.
So let me ask you a question, Omar, to Adam, if you guys don't mind, right? So you have an off-market property. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you don't deal with one buyer at a time. Mm-hmm. You've got 20 buyers, 30 buyers. How do you choose, of those buyers, which one of them you will market or offer that off-market property to? So what should the listeners,
how do I become your favorite buyer?
Do
you already are.
Make sure that their agent will give them that deal. Crazy. I know it's a tough question, but if you guys have it.
So you're saying if you have 3 different people who are looking for the same type of home and you find an off-market listing, who do you give it to?
More than 3. So let me ask you guys, how many buyers do you have currently?
40.
Right?
Really?
How many buyers do you have currently?
But you're number 1.
I'm not working with many buyers right now.
Yeah.
I told you guys Omar's out here looking for his own bread.
No, I have a few dozen buyers right now that I work with at any given moment, and they're all over the spectrum.
And you love them all equally.
Except for Noelle, she's my favorite.
Okay. Well,
if any of my other buyers are listening, please ignore that.
Or any of your family is a little bit older and has a 4-bedroom house in Ridgewood. So, all right. That being said, how do you pick of these people? So we're way more than 3. Who gets dibs on that?
I mean, so the way I do real estate is I'm not a very particular person with one geographical area, right? So I don't just choose Hackensack. I'm not just Hackensack. I don't even just choose Bergen County. I sold properties in Union County, in Morris County, in Essex County, Bergen, and Hudson in the last year. So I go where I can sell properties. To me, I don't mind. I was just in Jersey City 4 days ago showing a $2.5 million condo. I don't mind going outside my little circle here, my bubble here, to go show houses. Yes, it's a lot easier if I can show a house in my backyard. But so my 30 or 40 buyers that I'm currently working with are scattered among those areas. Some are looking to spend $500,000 and some will spend $2 million.
So, but what if you have 10 people?
Yeah.
All that want that same house can also be in Wyckoff.
Sure.
I'm thinking Omar's a lawyer because he danced well around that question, like Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Float like a butterfly.
Right.
How do I pick and choose?
Right. How do you pick which one gets
And
that
also,
off-market
but
house?
How common is
Fruit
it?
baskets, guys.
I do honestly have a few buyers that are in the same looking, and I've literally been at a house showing it to one of them while the other one pulls up, and it's awkward. But
wow.
yeah, it is what it is. It's just there's limited houses on the market. What am I going to do if somebody else says they want to see it? I have to be respectful for them, just like I would you. And my clients have asked me, what happens if you have two clients that are making an offer on the same house? And I said, I have to respect each side. I can't tell you what they're offering. I can't tell them what you're offering. I have to be respectful for each of you. So I can't use either of you to leverage against each other. Even if I can't push to get you in the house over them or vice versa. I have to be fair.
So you would go to that off-market seller. You've knocked on the door. You've said, "Hi, I'm not going to kill you."
Yes.
And
just ignore this giant dagger.
and then you have said, "I have 3 different buyers who I think would be very interested in this
Correct.
exact home. I can give you each of their offers."
Correct, but now you have to also go ahead and protect yourself because what's to stop? There's no listing agreement, right? So
Right.
so myself and Omar, for instance, he's another sales associate, he's another agent. So if I have a listing agreement, he's going to respect that because he has to. You can't go after the seller directly. You can't go around.
Right.
That's word.
Percolating.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
But my cousin, Ken, who's got different last names.
Right.
Bomar. But on the other side of
You
things,
haven't seen his big mustache. He
Yeah,
puts it
right.
right on. He shows
on a
up
hat.
5 minutes later.
but you know,
Josh.
what's to stop seller that's off market from going? If I bring you to them, what's to stop them from calling you directly and saying, "Hey, Noelle, I know you mentioned you were working with Adam, but if I could sell you this house directly, I could save you a few percent."
Nothing.
Nothing. There's absolutely nothing other than morals.
The goodness of people.
Yeah, but
Well, for all you guys watching, right, that hanky-panky doesn't work because if your real estate agent has sent you the specifications
That
of
hanky-panky.
hanky-panky.
Go ahead.
We got that alert with the FCC last time. After we hit 5 million viewers, we're now being a little bit more regulated. So, if your agent shows you that house or even tells you about it, you can't go around their back because there's laws preventing that.
if it's agent to agent.
Well, no. What if you send it to one of your buyers?
So
and
so
says,
let's
"This is
say
a problem"?
let's say it's an off market house. Let's say it's Noelle selling her house in Ridgewood, right? Because she wants to buy a bigger house in Ridgewood or Wyckoff.
Right.
And
No, just kidding. I didn't buy one yet. If you guys got it, send it.
send it this way. But let's say Noelle's selling her house off market, and I bring Omar in directly. What's to stop Noelle from going directly to Omar? He's not
being
a
like,
licensed
"Let me
agent,
look him up.
other than ethics and morals.
I'll
and things
find
like
him
that.
on Facebook and I'll be like, "Listen, I'll cut you a deal if you cut out this person."
And it saves you 2%.
And that happens.
Now, if it's agent
Yeah,
to
I would
agent,
totally do it. I
he
mean-
can't do that technically. And I've had people try to do that to me.
But
And I've had my buyers stand up
You
for me.
can't do it if you're a realtor. You can do
Correct.
it if you're a real estate agent because you're not held by a code of ethics. Am I right?
But your buyer can't do that. If your
Why
buyer
not?
goes
That's a
around
real
your
technical
back, you have a claim against the buyer.
Only if I have an exclusive buyer's agreement with them.
No, I believe, and I have to research this, but off of my interpretation right now of the law, even if it's not exclusive.
Right, that's your lawyer.
If you show them the house,
Mm-hmm.
if you identify that house, no matter what they do, and if they close on that house, you've earned your commission.
So
But
that
even
would
if
be-
they didn't engage him, well, they had to engage him.
What
to
if
let
but what if
people
the
in
buyer
house.
went
Okay.
directly behind you? So let's say
You
I
already showed it to them.
I showed it to them, and then Omar goes directly to Noelle as the seller and says, "You know what?
You can sue them both and get your commission.
But I disagree with that because I think the governing body for that is the board of realtors, and they only deal with agent to agent, broker to broker.
No, the governing body for that is
Is
the
the part-
Superior Court in the county in which this violation has transpired.
Is it really?
Yes. Look, this
I
is
don't know.
tortious interference.
Okay.
Tortious interference with the prospective contract. There's a lot of thereures of law. Unjust enrichment, right? you've done your job, then they've circumvented you and closed. And I'm fairly confident. Guys, when you tune in for next week, I will have a definitive legal answer for you guys.
Okay.
But right now, in my opinion, you can definitely sue both of them for tortiously interfering with your prospective business advantage. I don't think that they can do that. The moment you've shown them that house, they cannot buy that house without giving you what you've earned.
Good to know. So if we ever run into that situation, Nima's the guy to speak to.
Yeah, seriously. Wow, he's gonna have all the answers.
Represent us.
No, that's great. That's great to know. I wasn't aware of that. I knew that agent to agent, Omar can't go around with my client, can't go around my back. And I've had people try to do that. I had another associate try to do that to me once. And it was with a close friend of mine. And the close friend said, I'm not buying this house, unless Adam sells it to me.
Yeah.
And
guys, you're kind of like, as a buyer, I get maybe they'll reduce the price a little bit, but it's kind of a scummy thing to do too, because at the end of the day, you're not paying the commission, right? The seller is.
Right.
So why would you screw over your agent?
Maybe they tell you that they won't sell you the house unless you cut the
that's
agent
beautiful
out.
because then you definitely have tortious interference, right? Because that's maliciously interfering with your relationship with your consumer. So you have a claim then against that buyer without a doubt in my mind. I would sue that buyer all day, right? For your commission.
Is door knocking the same thing? I keep on seeing this thing, driving for dollars, and I just like it. What's driving for dollars?
Driving for dollars is when you go up and down your neighborhood or your
Intended
county,
neighborhood,
wherever it
right.
is, yeah. And you look for houses that you think they may want to sell because they may not be keeping up maintenance on the property.
Oh, so why would you think that someone's not keeping up maintenance on their property wants to sell? Maybe they're just slobs.
Could be. You're right.
Slobs don't pay their bills.
Yeah, and they might run into some distress situation that turns that into a potential sale. Or they may just be neglecting it because they don't have money.
Or they might have a ton of kids like me, but yeah.
Yeah. Or they might
work.
Yeah, right?
Or they could be out of state owners who are just not taking care of their property. They might want to sell.
Yeah, clearly. Listen, it's not guaranteed, but if you look at something that's dilapidated, there's a reason for that. The people clearly don't care about the house. And if they don't care about the house, and they're not attached to the house, right? It's not their
Right.
baby.
Then they might go for the right amount of money.
Now keep in mind though, because I crossed this in my town, not crossed this, but I encountered this, that a lot of towns do have do not knock ordinances.
Yeah.
So
how
for
do
instance,
you find out which ones
just go to
do
the
and
town,
don't?
go to their website, look it up. Now, for instance, in my particular town, I went to go I was going to go ahead and knock and give out stuff and introduce myself. And I spoke with the chief of police, and the chief of police said, you can become a solicitor. But if you're a solicitor, nobody wants to talk to you. Every day you have to go to our website or you have to come in here and we give you a list of all the homes that are on the do not knock ordinance because it changes every day when people add themselves onto it. And if you violate this, it's crazy fines. But if you go in and introduce yourself as a neighbor, that's fine. So you can't go like giving out a mug, or you can't go giving out things and brochures and this and that. You can say, hey, I'm your neighbor, I live down the street. He was okay with that. But just keep that in mind, because if you do violate that you can get fined pretty heavily from.
So you could say I'm your neighbor. Oh, by the way, I'm also a real estate agent.
Exactly. But I can't, the moment I was giving out, like a mug or something with my name or my handsome face on it.
What about your card?
The card's okay, because I'm just saying, hey, if you ever need anything, give me a call. They were okay with that, but not with an actual.
Okay.
Now that's my town.
So we could be neighbors in the town next door.
Right. I'm your New Jersey neighbor.
It could be, yeah.
All right, so guys, if I was not a lawyer,
Okay.
and I was a regular person who didn't care,
Sure.
I would say even if the ordinance exists, maybe that's where you should go. Because what are your fines? So I just pulled something up on the internet. Jersey City passed something only in 2016, and it's a maximum up to $1,250 fine for your first violation. Then you may lose a local municipal business license if you have it, or minor things like that. So hypothetically speaking, now you know there's no
Most
competition.
people, $1,200.
But is that $1,200 per door that you knocked on?
That's a good question. I haven't really
Because
looked
if you
at
knock
it.
on 100
Right,
doors,
that could be a ton of doors.
You gotta sell a lot of houses.
I would find that to be
excessive.
just not yet. I think that would be unconstitutional, but I don't know. But I'm just saying, if you go, you hedge your risk, you get a ticket. Okay, it costs you $1,200, but imagine if you get a sale.
If you get the sale.
But now, if you're going after somebody like this, in my opinion, now I'm not an attorney.
But as a lawyer, I strongly advise everybody not to do that because it violates the law.
But but so when you're going after like an individual off market, or you're going after a list and you have 5 in this particular town, that's different in my opinion than going after and knocking on every single door as you go down the street. You're going to them with saying, hey, look, I know you were looking to sell at some point or some, whatever the situation is. You're not just going door to door like, the cable companies do when they're trying to pitch their
Or
service.
my client saw this house and they fell in love with it. Are you willing
You're
to
trying to
sell?
provide a
What's
service
your
to them.
number?
You're trying to help
What's
them.
your number?
And guys, it's also super inefficient. With the internet, I'm pretty sure if you found the house, you'd find the phone number of the owner.
But there's also, but calling them and showing up on their doorstep, I know it sounds...
No, it's more
sounds
personal.
crazy the way you said it before,
it's-
but...
yeah.
Because that's how the horror movies start and everything. But when you show up on their doorstep and it's more personal. You're going the extra step. Had I called this woman that I was selling her house, that $500,000 house,
She would have hung up on
She
you
probably
right
would have
away.
hung up on me. She was very hesitant, but by the end of the conversation, I was literally touring her house. She was showing me everything,
You
and
made $25,000 on that sale.
yeah.
So what can I do as a regular person? I'm a regular person. I'm watching this podcast.
Call Adam.
Besides call Adam,
Omar won't take your call. We've established that.
Besides calling Adam,
Unless you got asbestos in your basement, then he'll try to buy your house.
what can I do to find my own off-market property and then take it to my agent? What can I do to help my agent along?
Buy a rabbit's foot.
Yeah. You can scour. You can scour like Zillow and things like that, and you can see properties that were removed. The problem is when you go to Zillow, it's not as accurate as the MLS.
Okay.
So you can go to like a Zillow or Trulia, and you can see that this house was on the market and then removed, and it didn't sell for whatever reason, maybe a year or two ago. And you can say, hey, can you find out the situation? I just had within the last 2 months one of my buyers do that. Looking to spend $2 to $3 million in a particular town, and they gave me a list of about a dozen properties, and they said, hey, can you contact every owner here and find out if they're willing to sell? And of course I did, and I'm still trying to pick through it. But so they kind of went through Zillow and said, look, I know this one just sold, or this one sold 5 years ago, or this one hasn't sold in 20 years, but these are the houses we're interested in.
That's a good buyer.
I'll throw
That's
some.
a good buyer.
Yeah.
I'll throw someone out there too. Tune into this podcast. So look, we all have flips, right? What if something fun would be, and you guys can email us, and if you think this is interesting, that before we list any of our flips, we will give whoever's watching our podcast, give a 1 week window to see if you guys want to put an offer in on it. So it's something that's not going to end up on the MLS. We know what our properties are worth for the most part, so you're not going to get a steal, but you won't have to deal with it being driven up by an inflated market, right? You'll at least be around market. And it's something that we can offer people who are watching.
So what he's saying is, if you are listening and you're interested in these properties, if you email us info@recareercenter.com, then we will give you a heads up on the flips that they have. So a heads up so you can show your buyers the house. You can see if you have a buyer for them, and then you're basically getting it off market. Is that sort of like having a pocket listing, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So it's sort of like having this listing in your back pocket. Does that make sense? So info@RE, if anyone who's watching this out there in TV land, info@recareercenter.com, you'll be put on a list to get this sneak peek of their flips. That's huge.
So I'm going to put this out there right now. In the next 60 days, I won't say which episode I'll offer it on, but I have it's lake, I would call it Lake View, because there's on the lake and then there's across the street with a dock in, I believe it's Culver. Beautiful lake there, motorsports. We can only use the lake if you have access. Gorgeous home. You have to be tuned in any of the next 8 episodes, which would be 60 days. I'll give that.
You'll let people know about it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they can email you before I throw it on the open market for a bid bonanza. But now I'm not going to tell you guys which day it's on. I'm only going to say it on one of the episodes. So tune in and you'll figure
have
it
to
out.
listen.
Perfect.
If you guys are looking for a lake home or just a beautiful home across from a lake,
We like games on here. We like some get you coming back games that you're going to get something good from it. So I love that. All right, let's talk a little bit about the craziest off-market. Can be investment, can be residential, can be anything. The craziest deal that you have found that you just found it wasn't listed. And then I also want to talk about targeting divorces and deaths, just to keep it upbeat. So first, the craziest.
I can't answer that because I think my answers will offend most people watching this podcast.
No, but really.
Whereas I was going to bring my Scrooge McDuck. It would have been totally appropriate right now. I left it in my office, though.
Give me something. Give me one of your craziest off-market deals.
Last year.
Okay.
Bought a property for $105,000 or $10,000. and I sold it for 321. I've been talking about that transaction a couple times now. That's almost 3x.
That's amazing.
And I put in maybe 40 grand into it. So,
But how was it off market?
so look, and this kind of goes back to what I had asked Adam. How do you pick who you offer it to? I get deals through relationships. People I know, I'm always out there. I don't surround myself with other people who flip because, newsflash, guys, you're not going to get deals from other people who are looking for deals. I know everyone likes to go to these meetups, meet and greets of flippers, and you think that that's how you're going to learn the business and find deals.
It's your competition.
Yeah, it's
Right.
like
It's
I
your
just, every
competition.
time I see those on Facebook, I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like, why would you? It's like you're a shark and you're going to go hang out with a bunch of other sharks and talk about where the fish are hiding, you know? So at the end of the day, it's a lot of times it's from real estate agents, right, who are flippers themselves, or I have something that they don't, capital, and you can't buy it all. And typically I'll get just where they have extra inventory that they can't close on themselves. They'll look to me because they know that from me, they don't like me better than the other buyers. God, I would be
They
shocked.
know
if
that
they
you have the
actually did.
cash ready and ready to run.
It's a double whammy too. So not only will they know that I'll close quick because the cash is ready, and I'm not going to be like, well, the electric outlet on the second floor
Right.
is reversed, and I would like a $900 credit. And
Right.
there's well, I don't care, right? I'll go with the screwdriver and change it myself.
Right.
So they know that it's quick, it's easy, and they also know that they're not done because in 90 days to 120 days, I will be right back there giving them that property, which they can then sell to their own buyers.
Okay.
So it's like a triple whammy because they are moving the property to me. They are, and a lot of times they won't even charge on that, right? They're not like, I've had deals where they're like, look, I'm not the agent on this. I know the seller. It's in our community. They came to us. We can't buy it. Do you want it? And I'll still pay them, right? I'll cut them a check for
So
the
basically, you're in bed with a lot of real estate agents that you're able to tap into their networks.
Sure. And I wouldn't say I'm necessarily tapping into their network because they usually reach out to me. So it's not
So
like I
they're
call every week, right? When they have a property and it's good and they want it moved quickly,
Mm-hmm.
they'll call me because I'm just the right candidate in that moment. And there's a lot of people out there who say that they do it, but there really isn't. There's not that many people out there who are ready, willing, and able to close cash, no inspections, don't need to deal with financing issues, and can move that property.
So you made more than 3 times.
About 3x.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Omar.
I guess as far as off-market deals, I came across one deal that I'll never forget, which is it was during the pre-foreclosure times of 2013, 2014. House was completely flooded after Hurricane Sandy, abandoned. The lady who owned the house was even on the news complaining about how the river overflows. But long story short, I got that off-market deal at a price that you could say was pennies on the dollar. And I did nothing to it. I flipped it over. I flipped it to the next buyer for a 6-figure profit.
And so wait, you found it just by looking at these pre-foreclosures,
Yeah.
or so you did the pre-foreclosure, but this was back
This was
pre-COVID.
back when the market was
Yeah.
a lot more foreclosures.
Right.
everywhere, Yeah.
Also, that everyone didn't have the knowledge. Guys,
Yeah.
we live in a very hard world. Like, I'm sorry, like that you're all going to get a little bit hurt by what I'm about to say, but the internet has screwed everybody. Knowledge is accessible.
because anyone feels they can do anything.
Well, they have access to that knowledge.
I mean, I could perform a surgery if I wanted. I just
30
have to watch it on YouTube.
30 years ago, you had to be smart,
Yeah.
creative, intuitive, innovative, and you would make money. Now, you're all those things, and then it gets posted online on Reddit 9 minutes later,
Right.
and everyone's sitting on their couch doing nothing, just read it on Reddit, and now they know how to do it.
So wait, Cam wants to know, is this why they call this real estate wholesaling, or do they call this real estate
That was something that
wholesaling?
you hinted at before.
Yeah,
Why don't we discuss
wholesaling.
what wholesaling is? Have you wholesaled property before?
So that's I don't even know what is wholesaling.
Yeah, what-
Wholesaling is
okay.
exactly what I just
Ah.
mentioned. So the deal that I got under contract was for pennies on the dollar. I could have fixed it, put it back in the market, done all the work myself, but I had a buyer who's willing to pay me 6 figures above what I got it for, as is. So I sold it to him. I wholesaled it to him.
So wait, you bought it because you found the deal, but then you didn't do anything to it, and you just turned it right around right away.
There's a lot of details and layers that go below. Beneath that. I didn't just walk in the park and come across a deal. But what happened was that deal took me a year to put together because it was a pre-foreclosure. The bank wasn't giving me the price I wanted. We had to go back and forth, probably 50 different times. There was liens on it. And this deal was unique because it was the first deal I had that had IRS tax liens on the property. But interestingly enough, I think tax liens expire after 10 years or so. So it was about 60,000 in tax liens, and I'm like, this deal's done.
And you waited it out.
It's not going anywhere. But I looked up the tax liens, and it was expiring in like 3 weeks.
So
they
it
all
just
got
disappeared.
Yeah.
That was just luck.
They all disappeared, and that made the deal even that much better. And then it was in a flood zone, so the
So
bank.
you
gave
bought
me-
it subject to the liens.
I didn't close on it because the liens expired, and then I contacted the IRS to give me the waiver.
Did the sellers know?
She was happy. She knew that she had liens up and down because most people who are in distressed situations end up getting liens on the property. But this was such a unique case because there were so many liens on it, and the tax.
Unless you own the property under an LLC or in trust. But that's another episode. Actually, we should just pop to my mind. We should probably talk about
Sure.
shielding assets.
But if you own it
Shielding, I
under
like
an
that.
LLC, you could still have liens attached to it, no?
We'll talk about that in another episode.
So,
it's complicated, but
Give me the kindergarten version of what is wholesaling.
So, so I haven't done it yet, but as far as I understand, wholesaling is essentially reassigning a contract. So I say to you, I'm going to buy your house for $100,000. We write up a contract. I'm going to close in 30 days. Then I go to you and I say, look, you're looking for a house like this. You're an investor, whatever it is. I found the perfect house. I think you would love it at $130,000. So I've never actually purchased the property. I just reassign the contract to you. You essentially buy it for 130 grand. I pocket the difference.
we should have almost an entire class on
Yeah.
that because while that's a genius,
Wholesaling.
Brilliant business concept, the legalities of
So
that,
many.
right,
Yeah.
are very intricate,
many.
especially after the mortgage foreclosure crisis.
Yeah.
So guys, back in like 2008, that was happening left and right because it was just funny money, right?
Right.
The problem was people were not taking title. They would do back-to-back closings where that middle buyer would not actually take title to the property. And
So they were wholesaling.
Sure, but laws came out that regulated that. And a lot of title companies now have issues with doing that because if you're not going to close, right, there you need to be properly contracted and your payment should ultimately be on the HUD, right? And that means that your contract that you sign. So guys, it sounds easy, but you have to be experienced. Like if Joe Schmo, that's what Father Pete at Don Bosco used to call random people.
Joe Schmo.
If Joe Schmo goes and signs a contract saying, "Oh, I'm going to flip this," but he doesn't know the game, most contracts are not assignable. You
Yeah.
can't do it without the seller's permission. Why you're going to go back to the seller and say, "Hey, so I got this great offer for $80,000 more that." that I'm going to sell. They're like, dude, I'm underpaying. No, I'm not going to do that because they just want to be spiteful. Close on my property, then sell it. Which, guys, now you're talking about, okay, you have the closing costs,
Yeah.
you have the fees. That $80,000 just got chopped in half.
Right.
And that's if it's 80,000 to begin with. It's usually a lot less than that. But
Yeah, you're looking at 30, 40, 20, 80 is huge. So you need to make sure, one, your contract is entirely assignable without the seller's consent. That requires lawyering because if they have a lawyer, they're going to be like, well, why? That's weird. Are you going to flip this property? Because now people look out for that stuff and they think that maybe they're undervaluing their property. So you really got to be ninja about it
yeah,
and how you do it and how you get it done. And then you got to make sure you're protected.
Legally.
Because
Right.
if you're the assigner or if you find another buyer, now they're in contract or you've assigned the contract per another agreement. Guys, what happens if your buyer bails, right? Even when you assign, you're still responsible for
stuck
the
with it.
original deal. So if the guy you're flipping it to bails, you need to be ready to close because you're going to get sued or you're going to lose your deposit. So there's a lot to wholesaling. It's not that easy. It's
not.
Where if you find a deal
we
and
can
move
totally
it.
do an episode on that, and I think that's a great idea because people don't understand that at all.
So
Yeah.
So I to Nima's point, it's not even something that it's very difficult to teach because there's so many legalities to it.
That's why we have a lawyer.
But even as an attorney, you may not even want to deal with clients who do wholesaling because if they're new and they don't know what they're doing, they're just gonna get into issues and you're gonna end up having to solve a lot of problems.
I don't mind because obviously I like educating them. I like teaching them. So we do that at our firm. And
Good.
we have a lot of people come to us and say, hey, we want to wholesale. Like people will specifically come and say, can you hold my hand through this process? And
That's great. That's a really good service.
yeah. So and it's because I do it, I know it. So I've wholesaled a lot. And sometimes it just makes more sense. If I can make 30,000 today or 20,000 today, right? Why does that make more sense than making $70,000 in 7 months? Well, because I'm not just making 70,000. I have to put money into the project.
And time.
Right, and then you have
And
to
there's
put
also risk.
time.
And
Right.
time. all
And
the
we
time
know
have
how
to
you
put.
love your time.
Love my time. So risk versus reward, why tie up capital? There's a value to that capital.
Right.
So guys, if you're listening to all these episodes, I think the recurring theme, I hope that you guys see that we don't discuss things in a vacuum because we don't look at things in a vacuum. Everything has value, time, money, capital, right? And you hopefully as you watch more and more of these episodes, you'll begin to absorb that concept. And you're going to look that there's so many dots that need to be connected. And you learn from everyone in these different industries that you can connect those dots yourself. But yeah, I do a bunch of wholesales. They're a phenomenal way to make quick money. You're in, you're out.
There you go, Cam.
You got to check at closing and you move on with your life.
I love that.
So I would highly recommend it for people to do it.
I did want to talk, and we don't have that much more time, but I did want to talk about deaths and divorces when you're looking for off-market properties. Is that a good way to target? Is it a good thing to
Best
figure?
deals out
It's the
there.
3 Ds. Death,
Ooh, there's
divorce,
another D.
and what's the third one?
Death, divorce,
And debt, right?
and debt.
Debt, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those
I'll
are
make it
the-
joke.
those-
death, divorce,
Trying to be
and debt.
explicit.
You are like the grim reaper of real estate, but debt, divorce, and death.
And that goes under the list of distressed. So that's your fourth.
That's the fourth thing.
That's
Guys,
the fourth
it,
thing.
those are the best deals. Why? So you're buying a property and it's from the estate of.
Mm-hmm.
Why? If there's a bunch of kids, maybe there's no kids, it's a nephew, there's 4 people. They don't care about $10,000 because it's divided 4 ways. They would rather sell it and move quick. And in those situations, they are the type of buyers that will take a lower offer knowing there's no headache associated with it. If you come in and say, I'm a cash deal, I'm an investor, 30-day close, right? They will like that offer because it's not theirs.
So me as a
Pretty
buyer, should I be looking through obits? I'm like,
Of course. Yeah.
oh, yeah,
Good, but that's hard to streamline in a way where you could do it
right.
consistently.
I don't know. If you have that one town, you just concentrate on
can,
that
yeah.
town.
Well, it's also weird though, right? So
It
how do you,
is
like,
weird.
You like show up to their funeral with like a certified check as a deposit, and be like legally binding.
But don't
The
the
casket's
courts
expensive, huh?
don't the courts have listings of people who get divorced?
Not
So
that I
you-
know of. Not divorced, do they?
Yeah, I mean the courts in Jersey are just getting in the divorce to like online, so it's just something called JED, so they're not really publicly available.
Okay.
But you can go to the courthouse and find it. A lot of times, if you're instead of at that point where you're really truly going to find the deal, is friends and family who are getting divorced.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can explain to them, look, you got legal, you got this, you got that. I'll buy it.
Right.
This is what I believe it's worth. Are you guys interested? And that's when you can go to them and say, you're not going to pay a real estate agent. You're not going to fight over it with your legal fees. And you can come in and make an offer.
I will say another way that I've been seeing people look for off market, and I joined the mommy groups, the Facebook mommy groups of all of the towns that I'm interested in. And you see people all the time saying, hey, I'm looking for this type of house. Anyone selling or anyone know how to sell? And Facebook mommies are all over those things. They will get back to you. They'll tag other people. I'm going to PM you. It's great. So that's just for you guys out there. That's another way. Use social
So what you're
media.
saying is I create a fake profile, join Facebook mommy group.
That you're 30-something blonde. Yes.
I'm not even kidding. That's everything I was thinking when Noelle was talking.
I do it as myself.
Yeah.
I've looked as myself. I am myself.
Yeah.
But because they're really engaged and they know what's going on in the community. They know who's getting divorced. They know who just died.
They like it, the gossip, huh?
I mean, and it could be just the parents' page or whatever. And I don't want to be
Yeah.
sexist. I'm not just saying it's mommies. But mommies are great.
So if you see a blonde Noelle Frieson without an eye,
Right?
and I show up at your door, do not be alarmed. I will still buy your property.
All right. Who has final words on off-market listings?
Don't be afraid to go after them. I mean, once you become a sales associate, you become an agent, don't be afraid to think outside the box. Everybody is looking on the MLS. Once, you mentioned it multiple times. Once it hits the MLS, it's just going to get
over.
bid up. There's going to be 30, especially in today's market, there's going to be 30 offers on it. So if you can find an off market, not only is your buyer going to absolutely love you, But on the other side of things, you're going to make your job easier because you're not going to have to go up against 100 different offers. You're going to have a higher likelihood of maybe getting an accepted offer. There's a lot of benefits to it. So don't be afraid to think outside the box.
Can you imagine how much you will brag on your real estate agent that finds you something off market? Even if it was like just they already had it or they heard about it, but you're going to be like, they went through so much effort to find me my home.
Because they did, though. Honestly, out of 100 real estate agents, how many do you know that can tell you that they've done that to find their buyer a home?
Probably not. I
would-
do know one.
Honestly, I think
and
you
two.
count it on one hand.
Yeah.
You probably count it on one hand.
Because everybody just goes on the MLS.
Yeah.
They go on the MLS. and they
Low-hanging
say-
fruit.
It's
Ooh, Zanetta, that's how she got her house. She got it off market.
Is she one of your clients?
Yeah, that was mine.
You guys, less thoughts?
So I'm going to talk about from an investor's perspective. I just wait for it to fall in my lap. I don't go out and look for it because honestly,
I swear Nima's a leprechaun. He has the luck of the Irish. I mean,
I do, and
he's living at the end of the rainbow.
Do good things for others, and it comes back in karma. I really believe that, and I think that's what causes it. But I think that every way to get a good off-market house has become so saturated that it just has to come through a personal connection, and it has to come to me. Because if I go out looking for it, I'm doing the same thing everybody else is doing, and it's just not worth my time to do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Omar?
I think off-market deals are where investment deals are, and those are the only types of investment deals I'd be buying, especially in this market.
All right.
But how do you look for it? I think it's Noelle's question.
So
Yeah.
as far as looking for it, it's you have to go out there and hunt for it. That's really what it is. I unfortunately don't have it falling into my lap like Nima does. So
So you
have to
hunt
put
for
in
it.
work, yeah.
You hunt for it.
yeah, just the same way a realtor would go out to solicit for listings, you do the same for off-market deals.
You know, I feel as though, and this is, my final thing is, you get out of real estate what you put into it, right? So if you are going out there and looking for the deals and trying to make your clients happy and finding what they want, then you're going to get back so much more. Your pocketbook is going to be so much heavier. So I think off-market deals, I think it's a way to just amaze and wow your clients. But
And to Eric, we're missing our
We are
our
missing
Hefe,
our Eric.
Anderson. I want to remind everyone, if you visualize it,
you can do it.
you can achieve it. I don't remember the last name.
Yay. All right. Thanks, guys.